Well, finally, someone who's been in the green scene from very early on in life is Nicole Sherwin, editor of Simply Green, the print and online magazine, but also something of a celebrity in the area, having hosted Richard Branson's Carbon War Room and also working on a book called How to Be an Eco-Diva.
I think I was born green, Nancy.
Oh.
My father's a homeopath and naturopath and acupuncturist, so we were brought up very holistically. Went to Waldorf school. We were always recycling and vegetarian and caring for the environment and animals. And we moved to England when I was 7, so I grew up in England in the countryside, cow fields, horse fields. So to me, it's kind of my DNA. I felt very strange when I got out into the world after school. Didn't feel like I really fitted in very well because of that upbringing, and it was all very much about lentils and Birkenstocks and sort of hairy legs, which I didn't really like. I love looking at fashion and, being savvy in the world. And then I think when the whole green movement hit when I was living in LA, I sort of started feeling like, I've found my calling, because this is what I'm all about, but I can make it hip and cool and fun and easy for people to access and not make it a big scary thing.
Definitely not with hairy legs or
Anything
like
like
that.
Nothing like that.
So interesting that you were in England, you've been here, you've been in America, and there must be very different takes on the green movement, as you call it, depending on what the country's sort of status is. Have you found them to be very different?
Very, very different. When I started in the green sort of arena in Hollywood, particularly because I was working with a lot of Hollywood studios and different NGOs there, and also in the political arena, it was an emerging sort of new market. And very, very quickly it caught on. It was slightly more expensive than normal, and then all of a sudden when products flooded the market, it became quite accessible. I come back to South Africa and once again find myself in that position, which is very exciting to me because there's so much opportunity here. It's an emerging market. We're probably 3 or 4 years behind the States. Europe's even further ahead, and they're really, really up there on renewable energies, clean technologies, and looking at ways to bring green capital into that area. So it's a very, very exciting time to be in South Africa. I'm very delighted to be back.
So there's a lot for us to be drawing on in terms of what is going on elsewhere in the world, but there's an awful lot of issues that we have here in South Africa that maybe they don't have elsewhere in the world. And as a sort of developing country, there would be other things. Do you find that that's in conflict, that maybe the green arena, as you say, is almost sort of in a sort of an upmarket area, that it's not necessarily addressing everybody?
Well, I think initially one does think that, but when you look at communities and their lack of access to energy, there's so much incredible opportunity to get energy access into rural communities around Africa. And one does that with the affluent community. So it's the affluent helping, the less fortunate, but the barriers that exist are that, oftentimes we go in sort of guns blazing, thinking we're going to come and save you, and NGOs on the ground are not doing the research to find out what the villagers actually need and want. A prime example is I just got back from Washington, D.C. at a summit that the Carbon War Room hosts, and I went and focused into a track called Energy Access, which is very much about that and very, very pertinent to Africa. And it's quite fascinating to find out that a lot of communities in Africa do not have food and they don't have access to energy or clean water, but they all have cell phones. So some amazing business people and entrepreneurs are developing home photovoltaic solar panels with battery chargers to, quote unquote, charge their cell phones. And by the way, you can also have light and heat up and cook your food. And they have to approach it in a completely different fashion. And it's about learning the art of doing that.
You mentioned the Carbon War Room, which I think is an initiative of Richard Branson.
Yes, Richard Branson started it. He's the founder, and it's a non-profit organization that really brings the power of entrepreneurs together to unlock gigaton scale market-driven solutions to climate change. So what they do is they really help affect massive industries to reduce their carbon emissions at a gigaton scale. Now, for people who don't know what a gigaton is, it's 1 billion tons. It's a lot of carbon emissions. And the way they do it is through entrepreneurs and green capital and understanding how all these relevant areas fit together. They've got different working tracks that they work with. One is energy supply, transportation, the built industry, forestry, waste, agriculture, and as I said, I just went over there. I was invited by them to go and take part in the energy access because I'm working with them on a very big event that I'm bringing to Cape Town next year.
About which we look forward to hearing a whole lot more nearer the time. But
yes.
Just going back to the Carbon War Room, I think that you were hosting it, I think, at COP17.
Yes, that's how I met up with Richard Branson's sort of executive team that run the Carbon War Room. I was very, very fortunate and very blessed to be asked to co-host the Gigaton Awards. And the Gigaton Awards are basically like the Oscars for the low-carbon industry. So they give away awards to businesses, companies, and even a country that have managed to reduce their carbon emissions at gigaton scales. It was an amazing event, and I co-hosted it with my co-host was the ex-president of Costa Rica, Jose Maria Figueres. He started ecotourism 10 years ago. A brilliant man, and he's now just become the president of the Carbon War Room. He's just taken over from Jigar Shah, who was the CEO before. So,
well, again, look forward to hearing watch this space. Hopefully the Carbon War Room will soon become a Carbon War House, and it'll just continue to get bigger and bigger. Along to say, and the winner was whom? The Gigaton Awards.
Oh, it was different sectors that they focused on, from Philips to the country that won was Germany. Germany always leading the charge in the environmental arena. Very, very forward-thinking and on the ball. They've been doing it for many, many years.
Yes, well, I suppose it's a country to sort of keep our peeps on. Not that necessarily Africa and Germany have issues in common, but it's certainly something to look at their technology, not least. What I really wanted to talk to you about was Simply Green, because Simply Green is the name of your magazine, which I think you've been editing for 6 months or thereabouts. Or
I joined in July last year, yes. I've taken over as editor and work with a wonderful team of amazing people at Green Spaces Publishing. And we really focus on inspiring people to make more conscious choices without losing that great lifestyle that they have. So it's a business to business, business to consumer, sort of full glossy magazine that's printed on Sappy Triple Green. We now have an app for iPad and the iPhone, so it's available worldwide. And we focus on all different areas for consumers, for the business sector, and we've got some amazing advertising in the magazine as well. It's interesting editorial features and eco destinations and travel to skincare and renewable technologies.
As you say, quite glossy. It's quite upmarket. Are you preaching to the converted?
I don't think so, because I think we're converting at the moment. I don't think there's a converted happening at the moment, and I think one has to attack from top down and bottom up. So we also work with a lot of corporate social responsibility aspects, and we've got a great focus with Pick and Pay, who are now sponsoring our community pages and really sort of leading the charge from that side of things. There's all angles we're focusing on, and there's something for everybody in it. But it's definitely a sort of higher LSM target audience, because I think, in our opinions, those are the guys that are making the change at the moment.
It's a position to make a change.
It's a process. Yeah. It's a work in process.
It's also on paper, and albeit a very environmentally friendly production, but it's also available online, I think. So
yes,
that it's saving all the trees altogether.
Absolutely.
What's your vision for it in the future?
I would like to bring in a much more global focus. At the moment, it's very, very focused on South Africa. I've just brought on a new editor that's from the EU. He's based in Brussels, so he's going to be focusing on some wonderful political opinion pieces. He's just done a new introduction article on Rio Plus 20 that's coming up in June, so there's lots of interesting information from there. And I've got also editors in the States going to be writing articles, so we're really looking at creating a more global focus for the magazine, and it's a very, very exciting times.
We're talking of global. You've got a very Eve-like willowy figure on the cover. What were you saying with that? It's really quite sort of a glamour cover. She's got long wavy hair, carrying an apple draped in ivy. Is this part of the thinking to make green a bit more sexy?
It's funny you should mention that. Absolutely. We had sort of PV panels on the cover and robots and all sorts of crazy things, which appealed to a certain market, but not everybody. And my whole spin is to make green hip and cool and sexy, and that's what people want to follow. They don't want to follow the fear factor. Angela Simmons is Russell Simmons' niece. She's an amazing force in Hollywood. She's got her own shoe line, and she's, turned to vegetarianism because of the impact it has on the environment with the animal slaughter. So we wanted to focus on her, and funnily enough, we had 3 complaints about the cover. 2 old ladies in Builder's Warehouse complained that it was very, just too sexy, and we had another complaint, but we've had hundreds and hundreds of people that absolutely love it. So it's created a bit of a buzz, which is what we wanted. Our social media has gone crazy. People are blogging and making comments. It's done the perfect job. And next month we've got Sir Paul McCartney on the cover. So we're focusing on vegan issues and how he works to campaign with PETA. It's cool. Every cover is going to be different. I'm looking at tying up a deal for our next issue with Alicia Silverstone to be on the cover. I'm speaking with her people in New York. So it's really about sort of creating a bit of a buzz, creating a bit of a stir, and creating conversation about green, because that's what needs to happen. It's about the education process.
Nicole Sherwin, editor of Simply Green, the online and print magazine, and we look forward to hearing more from that sable again soon. But that's it from me and the team. That's Nancy Richards, Kim Winter and Rob Parkin.